And during the demo here today, I will go through the entire process from entering a contract, invoicing, receiving a payment, and then sending that information over to QuickBooks. I'll talk a little bit about the advantages of having the merchant account set up within Magazine Manager. And then towards the end of the session, I'll talk about how notifications, how to set up notifications and any errors you may receive from the QuickBooks integration. These notifications are set up to inform you if any invoices were sent or was not sent to QuickBooks. I'll also show you how we can easily correct those errors. So at this point here, what I'm going to show you first is actually going to be in QuickBooks. So I'm going to open up my QuickBooks here. And the first thing we have in QuickBooks that we would set up during the initial setup process for linking both the Magazine Manager and QuickBooks together would be up here. It's going to be your income accounts. Well, first of all, the QuickBooks versions that you use, this is the PC version. I'm going to show you the online version here in just a minute. But the PC version, it could be any any version that you really have here. In this case, you will see I have the QuickBooks Pro 2010. And most of you will probably have a newer version, which will work fine. We'll go into the chart of accounts. Within the chart of accounts, the information that must be mapped, it's going to be your income accounts. These income accounts we can pull into Magazine Manager. So those will have to be set up. The other thing that can be pulled in here is going to be your class list, if you are utilizing that class list. The last thing that needs to be mapped, the same way that we have it set up in Magazine Manager, is going to be your payment method list. The payment method list, what you see here on the left-hand side is what we have them named in Magazine Manager. So we just want to make sure they're named the same way. For instance, here, American Express, I often see that this is, it would actually say American Express on the method list here too. That would have to be renamed AMEX. MasterCard has to have a little space in between. Visa is often just with a lowercase, so that often has to be changed. When these small items are set up, we can actually then pull this information into Magazine Manager. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my Magazine Manager now. So within Magazine Manager, once we have set up this information, we can actually now map this information into here. So that is done here within the management and the website setup. And once we enable the QuickBooks integration, you're going to have these two links in here available as well. We will request the information, the QuickBooks information that we just set up, being your your income classes, your class list, and also the payment methods. So we will request that here. Once that's requested, we would run the web connector. And the web connector I'm going to show you in a minute. In this case here, I have already prepared this, so I have run the web connector. So this is what the information would look like. When we go to link all our products, we will have this screen right here. What you see in here is going to be at the top a list of all the different products that you have in your database. So these are all the different magazines that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the one magazine. And then on the left-hand side, what you see over here is going to be all the different rate cards that you have associated with this particular product. So as I scroll down here, you can see I have several rate cards associated with it. And I can see all of these rate cards have been mapped. The first thing I see in here on the left is going to be your income accounts. These are the same income accounts that I had in QuickBooks that I've set up. The next one is going to be my class list. So you can see here I have mapped this particular product to my classes in QuickBooks. And then all my accounts receivable is going to go into that account as well in QuickBooks. And finally, my AR class posting goes into the same class. Once all this has been mapped, I simply go to the bottom and I click Save. And then I'll repeat that for all the different products that I have. So that information is saved. I would then simply go to the next one and then repeat that information. We can see this example right here, I did not set up any revenue class posting because it's not needed for this particular product. Or if that needed, if it is needed, I would simply go into QuickBooks, set up that class, request the information again, and then I'll be able to map that here. So that's everything as far as the link in here. Now, on this side here as well, we do have an option to link customers, which I will show you later on today how that function actually works. This is in particular is used when we first connect your QuickBooks with the Magazine Manager. All the existing information that you may have in QuickBooks as far as your customers. You may have some of the same clients listed in your Magazine Manager. We will be able to link those together so you won't have any duplicates. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Yeah, just FYI here as well. You can ask questions within the GoToMeeting, and we do have somebody here on staff that will try and answer all the questions, and if not, we'll follow up with you afterwards. So please do ask any questions you have along the way. So what I'm going to do here now is actually going to be to show you the online version. So the online version, this is what it looks like. So in order for us to map the class list, etc., you will come into your company and go to your list. Within the list here itself, you would then be able to, let me go ahead and refresh my page here when it comes back up. All right. So here I have my chart of accounts. So just like we did on the PC version, I would simply come in here, I would set up my income accounts, and once those are all set up, I would then come back and clicked on the wrong link here. I can then set up my payment method list, and then what you're looking at right here is the smallest version of the QuickBooks Online, but what we have here is just a quick screenshot of what it would look like if you have the class list option. So here you'll see we can map all our chart of accounts, our payment methods, and also our class list. So you would have that option here. So once that is mapped, then it works the same way. We will pull that information into Magazine Manager, and you'll be able to map it the same way I just showed. So at this point here, I'm going to go back into Magazine Manager, and I'm going to go ahead and actually create a new customer, or I've already set up a new customer here. So I'm going to pull that client up. And I've not created any contracts or any proposals or anything for this client yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through that entire process. The first step is here. They want to advertise with us. So I'm going to go ahead and create a proposal for this particular client. I go to the bottom and click on my new proposal and select my template. At this point, I'm going to add my line items. And I can then choose to go skip the wizard or go through the wizard. I always use the wizard, just simply for the fact I won't forget any steps. Then I'm going to choose my product that I want them to advertise in. Choose my rate card. And in this case here, I will then choose the ad size that they're going to advertise with. In this case, we will just say that they're going to advertise a full page, and then want to do this for 6 times. They want to advertise in the travel section of my magazine, so I'm going to go ahead and notate that here, and then I'll go ahead and click next. I'm not going to give them any discounts, and there's no agency involved here either, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. And these are a few custom fields for most of you might be aware of how these work. The first drop-down we have here is an indication of the probability of this particular proposal that I'm creating right now to close. In this case, I know this client is going to advertise with me, so I'll leave this at 90%. The other are just examples of custom fields that can be created. I'm going to be the sales rep, so I'm going to leave that as is. This is going to be my billing contact. So finally here, I'm going to choose the actual issues. So they're going to advertise in this first issue here, and then they're going to go through November. So my 6 issues. And I'll go ahead and click next. At this point here, I have now created the proposal, and I can go ahead and review the proposal, make sure this is correct. So this is what my proposal is going to look like before I send it to them. That looks correct. So I'll go ahead and close that. And then, of course, I would simply click on my print menu, click the email, and send this to the client. Once the client has reviewed the proposal, they sign it, it now becomes a contract. You get it back. You simply come in here, you convert this to a contract. At this point, you can now, all the information that you entered earlier will now be available on your sales reports. It's ready to be on your production reports. You're able to collect all the ad material. Even in Digital Studio, you'll be able to use this particular contract to paginate your issues. And of course now, what we're talking about today is going to be to invoice. So we're going to go ahead and invoice and create a new invoice. I'm going to choose my invoice template. And then the first thing I'm going to do here is going to be just to view this month. I'll go ahead and click search. In this case, you will see, okay, I just have the one issue here for this month. In this case here, I actually want to receive the payments for all of them, all the issues that they want to pay up front. So I'll go ahead and click All Unbilled, and I can click Search. At this point here, you will see all the contracts that I currently have available in here in my system. And that's just too much for me to scroll through. So I can filter that down, and I can quickly come in here. I can search by company, and that will filter the search out for me. So now I just have the insertions that I need. I could also filter this information either by contact group, by a sales rep, or even do it by product. We do have a lot of clients that will come in here and invoice per product. So they simply select the product and the month, and then click Search, and then they can invoice all at the same time. In this case here, we'll go ahead and select all. The invoice date is going to be today, but I do want them to pay at least by the 1st of next month. So I'm going to go ahead and change that date. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and invoice the selected items. Once they are invoiced, I will now go ahead and I'll be able to preview the invoice before I send it to them. This is what my invoice is actually going to look like. So I can verify that that's exactly what I wanted to say. We can see here at the bottom a couple of things I want to point out. I've added this to my template where I had the customer ID and also where they have a self-pay link here where they can actually pay online. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute here. At this point here, once I need to send this to the client, I can simply click the email button, and that will actually I'll then be able to forward this to the client. So I'm going to go ahead and close these, and now I'm going to go ahead and pull up my actual invoice. So again, I'm going to go ahead and just search for my client here. And here I have my consolidated invoice with all the 6 insertions that I have. I want to receive a payment from this page right here, and all I have to do at this point is click on the Receive Payment in the Amount Due column here. And that will bring me straight to that page. Once I'm at the page here, I can verify that this is the correct client by viewing it right here. I then have an option to select my payment methods. So I can select that in a drop-down. If it's a check, I want to make sure I enter the check number. The amount will then be entered here. In this case here, I know that they want to pay the entire thing. So I'm going to put the $10,800. I'll put that in here, and then select the invoices that I want this payment to apply to. So I'm going to go ahead and select all the invoices. Now at this point, I want to pause for a second, and I want to talk about the merchant account. The merchant account would be the credit card link here. In this case, this is a test site, so this is not set up. I do have a couple of screenshots prepared for this so I can show you. If I were to click on this link right here, this would actually come up with this particular screen right here. So this is going to be your invoice payment screen. Now, the merchant account can be set up via plug and pay, and once that is set up, and one of the advantages of having that is that once you take a credit card payment, that credit card payment is not going to be on file, and you'll be able to utilize our batch billing report. This in essence will save you a lot of time and also money. Also, once you have the credit card on file, not only would this information on this particular screen be auto-filled out. So let me go back here. If this is an existing client, you already have the credit card on file, all you have to do at that point is to fill in the amount, select which invoices that you need to apply to, click the credit card, the screen comes up, all this information will be filled out, the amount will be filled out, and all you have to do is click Submit. At that point, it would charge the credit card for that amount of dollars, and all you have to do at that point is simply click the refresh page in here, and that payment is now recorded in Magazine Manager as well. In this case here, we don't have that, so I'm going to go ahead and click the Pay function here. Oh, we'll go ahead and select a Visa card here and click Pay. So now they have actually paid this. Now before I continue here, some of the other advantages having the merchant account, I mentioned the batch billing report. So let me go back to this screen here. With the merchant account, we do have an option to get a batch billing report. What is also included in here is going to be the invoice self-pay link. As I mentioned before, when I showed you the invoice, there's going to be a link on your invoice where they can click, and they can then, this little screen that you're looking at now will come up. They simply enter their customer ID, the invoice number. This information is listed on the actual invoice. So let me go ahead and go back in here. I want to show you exactly what I mean by that. So I look up my invoice here. So here I have my invoice number. At the bottom of the screen I have my customer ID. So that information, I will simply enter that here, click Find Invoices, and this screen pops up. Now the client themselves can fill this information out, and they can submit it. At that point, you'll have that credit card on file, so in the future, you can utilize the batch billing report. The batch billing report, go ahead and scroll down here. This is an example of a batch billing report. This is what it would look like in your Magazine Manager. What you will see over here on the left-hand side is going to be a list of all the clients that have an outstanding balance. On the right, or in the middle here, you will see almost like an AR aging summary. So in essence, who's current, 1 to 30 days overdue, and so on. All the way to the right here, you can indicate here, this is going to be the total amount that's due. In this case here, if you needed to, you could change this amount and say, you know what, my third one down here, collective collection, they only are going to do a partial payment of $1,000. I can simply highlight that here, put in $1,000. At the end of the day, I can then click Select All, and then click Charge Select the Customers. This will charge all these clients at the same time, being at 10 clients, being at 500 clients. And it will go through this list. Once you click that, he will actually go through, and it's going to be a blank page, and as soon as the credit card has been applied, it will pop up like this. So this is an example of a credit card that the payment has been received. It just says here the customer ID, who is the client, who is the billing person, and the amount. And it will tell you the credit card information, processing, and then also the invoice payment that it was, the invoice number that it was applied to. If it is declined, it will look something like this. Say again the customer ID and the name, and then also the credit card information, and it just simply says down here, did not honor. So at the end of the day, after you've done batch processing all these clients, all you have to do is just verify this and pick out the few that did not go through. Typically, these reasons would be, you know, the credit card has expired, they got a new credit card, things like that, and you just have to follow up with the client and get their number and then put them in the system again. So some of the advantages here, we did a case study with one of our clients, so I want to mention that with the merchant account. Some of the advantages of having the merchant account is that it's going to be easier to manage your money. You're going to know, kind of have an idea of what's going to come in, because all these clients that you already have the credit card on file, you know if they don't pay by the 1st, well, you can tell them that, you know, you're going to charge that credit card on the 5th, and now you can count on that money coming in. Collections time is hugely reduced. You can eliminate the wrong entry of credit card numbers. The case study we did here with our current client, they actually estimate that using the batch billing feature has saved them between 40 and 50%, which was surprising to all of us. But in this case here, the client we did the case study with, they invoice between 300 and 400 invoices a month, just depending on the month. Right now, approximately 30% of that is done by credit card, and right now, every month that goes up just a little bit. So in essence, their time savings is going to continue to rise. They estimate right now, since they started using this feature, that they save about 15 to 20 hours a week, and that's simply because of the batch processing. Now, to give you some numbers on that, that's approximately, if you take the 15 and just times that out by the amount of weeks, that's 780 hours annually. That's about 20 weeks that you just saved here. So if we put that a number on that and put what is an accountant's salary, all included, being at the cost of the office space, etc., a fair rate here would probably be $30 an hour. And just with that, you just saved $23,000. Now, the time savings for this is, what they said is that that's due to the collections time is hugely being limited, the elimination of the double entry, wrongly keyed information, and also the verification process. Beforehand, they had to verify when they had a contract, where's the credit card, they had to look up the credit card number, then enter the credit card number, make sure it went through, etc. Now all that is cut and simply cut. They can do all of that at once. So that was just a quick thing here on the merchant account. Now some questions I'm sure is going to come up on that. So with that, I would recommend you guys contact your consultant, and we'll be able to answer a lot more detailed questions on your particular benefits and how we can help you set that up. Now to continue at this point here, we did go ahead and process the payments here. So at this point, I'll go ahead and show you all the payments that have actually now been received. If you notice here, I clicked on the closed and paid, and now we see here the amount due all reflects that it's 0. So now how do we push this information into QuickBooks? We have another report over here that's called Send Data to QuickBooks. And this report here, we have, first it's going to say customer type. This will always be the advertiser. And then we have 3 drop-downs here, customer information, invoice information, and payment information. Customer information is the first thing we want to check. And this is going to show any clients that we have in the database that we have not sent over yet. Now in this case here, we can see there's 2 that's not sent over. The client that we have here, let me just quickly see here, we should already have linked these. Yeah, we have. Let me go ahead and unlink them. I can show you exactly what I mean by this. So now we'll see here, this client is now listed here. So I'm going to go ahead and select these clients, and I'm going to send all 3 clients to QuickBooks. And all I have to do at this point is click the select the records to QuickBooks. This will actually process the everything, all the information here from Magazine Manager and send it to the QuickBooks Web Connector. I haven't talked about that part yet. The QuickBooks Web Connector looks like this. This is a tool that Intuit created, and within this tool we have a small application that allows us to actually push information into QuickBooks. It is a one-way communication, in essence, that we can only push financial information into QuickBooks. We cannot get financial information out of QuickBooks. The only information that can come out of QuickBooks is going to be your income accounts and also your customer list, such as their company name and addresses and so on. At this point here, we do want to update the selected records. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And that's going to actually send this information over to QuickBooks. Now when I come into QuickBooks, I'm going to click on my Customer Center here. And now we can see Tip Top Soccer, as I just have here as a new client. They're actually showing up in here. At this point, you see there's still no invoices for the client. We want the invoices to come over as well. So all I have to do is come back into Magazine Manager now. I click on my invoices, and I click Search. In this case here, I can see, okay, this is all the 6 insertions that I have. I want to send all of them over, and I also have one for Andrew Ayer. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all, and we're going to send all this over to QuickBooks. Depending on how many you have on this list, it could take a few minutes. So if you're sending over, 50 or so, it could take a little bit of time to just update the information. Again, I send the information over. I'm going to go ahead and run the Web Connector. Before I run this time, let me just quickly tell you here, the Web Connector can be set up to run automatically. In this case here, you can see I have it selected here to run every 90 minutes. So in essence, what I could do every morning when I come in, just make sure I open this, open my QuickBooks, and then this will run automatically every 90 minutes. I don't have to do this manually. I'll go ahead and run this. Now as it's running, we'll actually see the invoices are actually being pushed over live. So that's the way that works. Now we can see, okay, this is the information that's now listed in here. I'll go ahead and just select one of them. Let me show that a little bit bigger. So what is coming over from Magazine Manager? First, if you remember in the beginning, we mapped the different classes to this particular product. The classes are listed here, and you can see the photography tips has been selected. The other information we see at the top here is going to be the invoice number. This invoice number is the same invoice number you have in Magazine Manager. In the description field, we can see what is the product that was invoiced here. That is photography tips. This is for the October issue, 2013, and it's a full page. And the price was $1,800. At the bottom in the memo field, again, we listed the invoice number. So you have 2 places to always reference this should you need to go back into Magazine Manager and look up this invoice. All right. At this point, we do want to go ahead and proceed and actually pull the payment information into QuickBooks as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click Search for that, since we already took the payments, and go ahead and select all those, and we're going to send that information over as well. So again, it's just going to take a second. Click OK, and we're going to run the Web Connector. And as it runs here, again, I will just go ahead and highlight that. We can see in here, we can actually see the balances being updated. We can see all the payments being posted. When I go ahead and click to review or review one of the payments here, we can immediately see, okay, how much was paid, the payment method. Remember, we selected the Visa to be paid by. It also have a reference number. The reference number is the payment number. This payment number, again, can be looked up in Magazine Manager. But also in the bottom here, you can see the number. The number is actually your invoice number. So should you need to or look up this particular invoice in Magazine Manager, you can do that simply by viewing the number here. So this is how it works with the PC version. I want to switch over here and show you how that actually works on the online version. So I did prepare a contract. Again, I call this Tip Top Soccer. This is a new customer. With the integration of the online version, we don't have the web connector. So instead, what we have a session key. So once initially we have a little bit of setup to do when you first sign up with the online version. And then on a daily basis, this is all you would have to do. You would simply come in here, open up your send data to QuickBooks report, click on the Get Session Key. This is going to connect you straight to the Intuit website. And in here, once you log in, it will actually then go straight to a login key. You simply copy this key, and then you close that down, and you copy it in here. At that point, you can click the search function here, and your client is going to show up. All you have to do at that point, select the client, and then select the record to QuickBooks. At this point here, it will actually send this information to QuickBooks, and this, depending on your internet connection, could go really quick or take a little bit of a time. So now if I go into my customer list here now, I'll go in here, and here's Tip Top Soccer that we just sent over. Again, you'll see there's no invoices listed here. I'm going to come back over here. I'm simply going to go ahead and now select my invoices, select those. In this case, we see there's a few more, not just the Tip Top Soccer, but there's a couple others. I'm just going to go ahead and select all and send those items over. Now, of course, this is online, so I'm not going to be able to see this live data transfer. I will not see this until I actually update the page. So I'm just going to wait for this to actually finish. So again, this is going to just take a second. Once that is completed, we'll then be able to, within Magazine Manager here, select the payments, and then we can send the payments over as well. So give it a second. Oh, reload. So here we have all the invoices for this particular client. We can now see that they have come over. I'll click on it here. The balance. And here they are. I can select my payment information. And now we can see all the, we haven't applied payments to these yet. In this case here, what I will show you then is have the shine on here. All these payments have been applied. I'll simply select those, and I can go ahead and send those over to QuickBooks. So in essence, as you can see here, there's not a big difference between the PC version and the online version. For the PC version, the only thing you have really, the difference is going to be you have the web connector here that you have to run, or you can set this up to run automatically. In that case, you really don't have a difference. With the online version, you do have to request or get that ID or the key before you can run this information. So it does take a minute simply because it is quite a bit of information we're just sending over. There we go. So now if I look up my client here, we can see now that their balance has been paid. See, open transactions. So here we have all the transactions that's listed here. All right, so that's actually how the tool works, how we can send information to QuickBooks. Now, we also have a safety net here in case that you added new products or new rate cards, etc. And if you didn't map that or you forgot to map that, we have a way to show you that. So you'll see here we actually have a couple different payments or errors that pops up here. We have a couple different ones here. The first one here, name already exists in the customer or vendor list, so ESPN. What that means, or what this error actually tells us, is that this particular client is already listed in QuickBooks. So if I open up my QuickBooks here and I search for ESPN, then ESPN should be in here. So we will see ESPN Worldwide Sports. That's the same client that I'm trying to send over. QuickBooks does not allow duplicates. So that's why this particular client could not be sent over. So the way we can do this now to link this client and get rid of this error message, well, first of all, these error messages can be set up, and I highly recommend doing that once we have this connection. In the employee editor, of course, you have to have administrative access to set this up. Simply come in here, you select who is going to have access to this. We're going to click on the Edit Rep Notifications at the bottom here. And in here we can select what type of notifications do we want to receive in our home page. We simply indicate that here. We want to receive the QuickBooks Web Connect errors, and then we'll go ahead and click Save. At that point, we can simply close these down. And from that point on, you will receive the errors that you see here. So we do want to go back in here to Site Setup and Website Setup. And the first thing we're going to do here then is going to say we want to get the latest information from QuickBooks, being in all the QuickBooks information you have already. So all your client information. So we'll go ahead and click here, and that's going to say please run the Web Connector. So we will run the Web Connector again, and we'll get that information. Now, really, this is the only time you should need to run this or do this thing right here where it says click here to request the customer information. It's going to be the very first time you set up. After that point, and I stress this highly, after that point, nothing should be added anymore into QuickBooks, only in Magazine Manager. If you start adding things into QuickBooks or editing things, client names, payments, you will receive errors. That is not the way the tool is designed. The tool is designed to only push information into QuickBooks. So if you had an invoice, you applied a payment in QuickBooks, now that payment is not going to go over, and it's going to cause an error. Now in this case here, we're going to now click on the Link Customers. In the Link Customers here, we have an option to search by the advertiser's name. We can select how many characters do we want to match this by. We can do that all the way from 30 to 3. So in essence, it's going to try and look for the same exact name of the customer by these amount of characters. I'm going to go ahead and click Search. Once you click Search here, and if nothing comes up, you could also search by the phone number and the amount of digits in the phone number, by a street address or a city. In this case here, we can see on the left-hand side, it does show what we have in Magazine Manager. It shows ESPN Worldwide Sports, and it also shows here in the link to QuickBooks. Now, in case you had multiple ESPNs in your QuickBooks, they would actually show here, and all you would have to do is select the right one and then simply click Apply. Now, at that point, this particular client is actually now linked in QuickBooks. So if I go back in here and now I click on my customer information, there should be nothing to send over. If I come in here now and click on my invoice information, we should now see I have an invoice that's ready to be sent over for ESPN. So I'm going to go ahead and send that information over. And I'm going to run my Web Connector. And now if I go back in here, we should see this payments coming over. So in essence, I just updated my list, and now this client is linked. This is a very common thing, or a very common thing that our tech support team sees. The next error that I want to show you is going to be this one right here. So we'll go ahead and minimize that. We'll go ahead and actually remove these. So if you don't know how to do these, you simply highlight these and then say, okay, I'm done with these. And so you just click the little button here. I do want to see what this is. Income revenue account not specified. So, okay, so I know that when I send over an invoice, something was not mapped correctly. I can go into my send data to QuickBooks and say, okay, this is my invoices. I know this is what it says. It says here in the error, right, that this is my income or revenue account. So I know, okay, so this has to do with an invoice. Now to see what income account is this, or what product is it, I can always come in here. I can look up the actual invoice. I can copy the invoice number. I then come into my invoices here. I'll go ahead and do a reset here, and then I can click. I'll paste the invoice number, and I can search for it. At this point here, I can see, okay, my product is shown here is Austrian desserts. So then I can go back into my website setup, and I can search for that in here, in where I link my customers. Remember, in the product list, I have all my products listed here. If I've added a new rate card or similar, or a new adjustment, I want to make sure that they're all mapped in here. And I can see here, I have a whole new rate card that I forgot to map. I want to make sure that I get that map, and I simply select that here and select it to the right account. And then I'll click Save. At that point now, when I go back in here to my Send Data to QuickBooks, I can now select the client, and I can select the records to QuickBooks. And now again, I'll go ahead and run my web connector. So now I'll go ahead and look up Andrews. So now we can see that invoice actually came over, no problem. But it would not go over before, and it created that error. So that's how you would clean up those two most common errors that we see that the clients do. At that point, of course, all I have to do now, is take the payments as well. And now I can actually send both the payments for both of these two clients over, and now I'm done with all my invoicing. So we'll finish up, and we'll do that real quick. So now we can go ahead and verify that information as well. So now we can see in here the balance is now 0. We have received the payment of $1,800. We can see this was paid by Visa card, and this is the right invoice, etc. We can go ahead and look the same thing up for ESPN, and see their account balance is now 0 as well. We can see the payment was applied here. In this case, it was a check, and this is the check number, and so on and so forth. So now that actually concludes today's session. I know it's a little shorter than our typical webinars. I hope this was very informative. This is a great tool, and as I mentioned with the merchant account, this is an example of how much money the merchant account could potentially save you. The tool here with the integration, of course, the the whole reason why you should have this integration with QuickBooks is typically you want to keep track of all your expenses. A lot of our clients would keep track of all the expenses in QuickBooks. So now you have all your income and your expenses listed here. So it's just a great way for you to avoid any double entry, and that should be a big time saver for you as well. So I hope this has been very informative for you. We're going to go ahead and leave the meeting here open for just a little bit. And if you still have any questions, please do post those, and we will get to those.